Episode 3 of Bloody Flower begins with Woo-gyeom telling Han-jun that he wants to do a demo where he cures someone. The Current Affairs Forum, which is a news program, is swaying the older demographic by calling Woo-gyeom a con man. However, Prosecutor Cha's father worries for her and wants her to drop the case. But she is uncomfortable with his affection as she believes their relationship will affect her credibility. We also see Minse's mother, Jae-hee, judging Han-jun for going to such extreme lengths for their daughter. When he mentions the cure, she refuses to consider Woo-gyeom's treatment. The prosecution ropes in former prosecutor turned Assemblyman Baek, who supports the death penalty. Now Cha convinces him to go on the news program and says so, and in turn she is confident that he will win the election, as the public wants the same thing. He even goes as far as to mention Han-jun's divorce. However, Cha doesn't like playing dirty and slams Baek's chief of staff for coming up with such a strategy. Now the defense finally learns that Woo-gyeom's victims are criminals with serious charges like assault and child abuse. They leak this and it goes viral on social media, and now the younger public starts supporting Woo-gyeom. At the next hearing, Han-jun submits 3 new pieces of evidence. First is the cure history, which happens to be a clinical trial which was actually approved before Woo-gyeom's accident. The second are the criminal charges against all the victims, and the third is the cure itself. This is Woo-gyeom's mutated blood, which even Jae-hee has confirmed has some healing properties. And finally, Han-jun requests a medical demo and declares that he will resign from the bar if Woo-gyeom turns out to be a liar. However, both Han-jun and Prosecutor Cha are curious why Woo-gyeom's research, which can be found inside the red notebook, was never found by anyone. They both think that Woo-gyeom has an accomplice, and Cha is emboldened when Detective Gong shows CCTV footage of a mysterious man walking by Woo-gyeom's clinic. As for Han-jun, he goes through Woo-gyeom's hospital records and figures that the boy's doctor, Professor Han, must be the accomplice since he is the one who discovered the mutated cells. However, when Han-jun visits him, Professor Han refutes all of Woo-gyeom's tall claims and states that there is no cure. As he leaves, Han-jun notices a black car parked outside Han's home. In prison, some inmates find Woo-gyeom's calmness rather odd. And later, a guard informs one of these very same inmates that Woo-gyeom killed his brother. At the hospital, Minse gets worse. The American Blood Association approves of the demo, but the National Forensics reject it, citing unsafe and unknown results. A Detective Gong is searching for the accomplice, and it leads him to a man strangled to death. At the next hearing, the judge agrees to consider Woo-gyeom's motive, but she refuses a medical demo and accepts Cha's charge for the death penalty. Episode 4 of Bloody Flower begins with Han-jun trying to reason with the judge, but she refuses to budge from her verdict. Instead of celebrating the win, Prosecutor Cha immediately heads to the crime scene of the strangled man. Now the dead man in question happens to be Hong Min-soo, a doctor at Chum Medical Center where Woo-gyeom and Professor Han worked. Now Dr. Hong was one of the people who approved Woo-gyeom's clinical trial and later left the hospital to start Jinnam Research Institute with Professor Han. Now back to Woo-gyeom's case for now, and following the death sentence he has appealed, but the new judge, Choi, is a good friend of Director Oh, which happens to be Prosecutor Cha's boss. Now Han-jun realises that they need a backup plan as Choi is definitely going to deny the medical demo. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Cha visits the Jinnam Research Institute, and upon seeing her, a man makes a run for it. She loses him, but he is caught on the CCTV footage. Now Woo-gyeom is moved from isolation to a shared cell, and one of his cellmates is a brother of Hong Jae-gwon, the last victim. As expected, the inmates attack Woo-gyeom that night. In the chaos, inmate Bae Gyun-hyuk is stabbed in the leg. When Woo-gyeom gets the upper hand, he pretends to attack until the guards arrive. He then pretends to have a seizure, and once he is rushed to the hospital, he asks for Professor Han. A flashback shows that this was all planned with Han-jun, who suggested an unofficial demo. They pick inmate Bae, as he has congenital corneal damage. We see that Woo-gyeom comes up with the actual plan, and Han-jun is worried about the risks, but Woo-gyeom doesn't care about the appeal. He's simply focused on proving his skills. Now back in the present, Woo-gyeom gives inmate Bae a blood transfusion, which heals the latter's stab wound and corneal damage. Now Professor Han verifies that Woo-gyeom's blood in Bae is the cure, and an overwhelming majority of the public demands a demo, and Han-jun even threatens to file a constitutional petition. Under the pressure, the court agrees to the demo, overseen by Chun. Elsewhere, Prosecutor Cha sees that Professor Han visited Woo-gyeom in prison. Before she can look into him, Chief Pyo, Assemblyman Beck's chief of staff, arrives. He's got an intel that Minta is battling Batten disease and she is one of the applicants for the demo. On top of that, Han experimented on Woo-gyeom when he was in a coma. He refuses to share his source, claims that this mess has been cleaned up, and warns Prosecutor Cha not to dig too deeply. Now, following Pyo's ominous warning, Professor Han vanishes. Hanjin is confused by the developments, but Woo-gyeom doesn't seem to care. It looks like there's no love lost between mentor and mentee. He claims that Professor Han failed to make the cure himself and is bitter that Woo-gyeom succeeded. He visited him in prison for answers, but Woo-gyeom gave him nothing. That night, Prosecutor Cha visits Hanjin. She's emotional as he was her role model and she used to look up to him. She wishes he had told her about Minta and promises to help. In response, Hanjin confesses that he hates himself for defending Woo-gyeom, but this is his last chance. All this drama accounts for nothing in the end, as Choi Woo-jin, a young boy with cancer, is selected for the demo. Following the blood transfusion, the court allows a 24-hour wait period. In the meantime, Detective Gong identifies the Jinan runner, Shin Ho-chan. He has an interesting rap sheet, including fraud and murder, for which he was just suspended. And the prosecutor was none other than director Oh Hyun-duk. There was also a medical violation involving Ho-chang and Professor Han, over which Director Oh presided and dismissed. Prosecutor Cha is shocked and wonders if Director Oh is involved in a cleanup that Chief Pyo mentioned. Not even a few hours later, Woo-jin wakes up fully recovered. And at the end of the episode, Shea Jong-soo, the chairman of Chum Medical Center, visits Hanjin, leaving everything on a tenuous cliffhanger. So after episode 3 dragged its heels a little bit, episode 4 introduces a new player now that Prosecutor Cha and Woo-gyeom have lost their menacing aura. The show could have worked without a clear bad guy, but given the premise, there's only so much it can milk out of these trials, investigations, and publicity stunts. It also doesn't help that a whole mysterious cure is something as straightforward and low stakes as a simple blood transfusion with guaranteed positive results. But by introducing this corrupt angle, it allows for a more multifaceted narrative and a much longer screen time. After all, we are barely at the midway mark here. Now, Prosecutor Cha finally gets her time to shine as well, with her confrontation with Hanjin. And while there are still some ways to go for her to break out of the cardboard archetype of the self-righteous lawyer, it's at least some progress. But what we don't get is why the show hyped up Woo-gyeom's ulterior motive last week. Was it just for the sake of a cliffhanger, or is there more to this that we're not seeing? If it is just that he wants to prove himself rather than his altruistic nature, it's not news. We already knew he's a narcissist. And it makes sense that he made the cure to spite and one-up his mentor instead of saving people. So what gives? So all in all, this week's double bill is a bit of a mixed bag, but hopefully next week we'll get things back on track. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.